This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Monday, November 24th, 2008, and this is episode 492 of WDW Today. I'm Matt Hodgenberg of StudioCentral.com. On today's show, we have Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, Matt. What's going on?
Not much. Also joining us is Mike Scopa, a blogger at allears.net. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, those chicks are hot.
Cranium Command?
No, Tiki Room?
Yes, Iago in the Tiki Room.
Very nice. And also joining us is the Supreme Allied Commander himself, Len Testa, co-author of the Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World. Welcome, Len.
Hey, thanks, Matt. So, Matt, I was thinking the other day, after sipping some tequila, that it's all in the way that you say things. So, for example, and by the way, this is how I came up with the show topic. For example, if I said, Newell, you have aged like a fine wine, it means that as I get to know you more and more, the complexities that are you come out, and I appreciate you more and more. Wow. Whereas if I said, Matt, you have aged like a fine wine, it means that I think you're bought and sold by old men and kept locked in a dark basement.
Obviously.
It's completely different.
On that note, we'll talk about today's show topic, which Len thought of, and I would pretend to know how to describe the show topic for today, but you know what? I'm going to throw it back to Len. Len, why don't you go ahead?
So again, it was actually the same night where I was drinking, and I came up with the idea after I was thinking about Newell, and the idea was one brilliant thing, and I'll even start the show. I'll start the idea. This was when I was thinking about Newell. I was listening to Mouse World Radio, and I was doing some photo editing where I'm just going back and editing thousands of photos that we have of Walt Disney World and posting them on the website. And I looked at the time and it was 8:55, and I thought to myself, I was doing Beach Club photos, and I thought to myself, if I was in the Beach Club right now, it'd be 5 minutes to Illuminations. Gee, I wish I could listen to it. And then I realized, well, at 9 o'clock on Mouse World Radio, there is Illuminations, and I can't listen to it. So this is what I thought was Newell's brilliant thing. The thing that he did better than anyone else before him was that if you listen to Mouse World Radio, you get to hear whatever's playing in the parks at that time of day. So at 8 o'clock in the morning, if you turn into Mouse World Radio, you will hear the Magic Kingdom main entrance loop that's an hour long, just like you would if you were standing in the Magic Kingdom. And at night, you hear Illuminations followed by Wishes. No one in the history of internet radio before Newell actually thought of that. And it was his one brilliant thing. I'm not saying you haven't done other brilliant things, but if I had to describe Newell's, contribution, or what makes Newell's thing different, right? What makes Mouse World Radio different from everyone else? I could do that in 15 seconds to anyone who doesn't even know anything about Disney and explain it to them. And they would not only understand it, but they would appreciate the true genius of it. That is Newell's one brilliant thing.
Okay.
I'm gonna make a loop out of that and play that at 10 o'clock every night. I can't top that. Good night, everybody. Wow.
But that was it. I mean, that was so. When I thought about what mine was too. So when I tell people what my thesis was, and this is not me tooting my own horn, when I explained to people what my thesis was, I said it's essentially the same kind of problem that FedEx sees every day when it's trying to deliver packages to customers, right? But for theme parks, the rides are the packages and you're the delivery man. That was my one brilliant insight, right, into the whole thing. And I'm not saying it was brilliant. I'm just saying I think it was probably the key to solving the problem. Same thing.
Okay.
Scopa on the other hand, the thing that Scopa does. By the way, we should probably talk about Newell because I'm the only one that's talked about Newell, and I'm sure you guys think he's equally brilliant. We'll talk about Scopa actually in a second. So Matt.
I agree with you, Len. I mean, I think one thing that Mike does with his brilliant ideas, not just what he does with what he does, but he goes over it with a fine comb, meaning no tracks where you can hear little kids screaming in the background. You know what I mean? And that in itself is lends to the type of quality that you're talking about, Len, I think.
So the thing about it too is he's got so much stuff that none of us have been able to find or hear for so long, right? I mean, I thought I had a reasonably decent audio collection of Walt Disney World when I had like 4 gig of stuff, and then I met Newell, who's got like 200. Okay, never mind. I stopped collecting Disney Park audio after I realized Newell had that much, because A, I'll never catch up. B, all I have to do is be friends with Mike, and I can get whatever I want. There's no point in me saving the disk space. What the heck?
Good point. Very good point.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
We should probably be recording this, because if any one of us dies an untimely death, we can just ship in the tape. What he said, that's me right there. that's right here, baby, right here.
Exactly. So you mentioned Len before Scopa. Let's move on to Mr. Scopa. And what is, in your opinion, what is Scopa's one great, brilliant idea?
So the thing I think that Scopa has done that no one else had done before him that he does better is he brings a certain amount of humanity and empathy to touring the parks without being like overly dramatic and saying it's the best place in the entire world. I mean, Scopa brings that balance of we love the place, but yet here's the reality of it all. And his was actually the first set of trip reports that I read on Deb's site that wasn't like, it was the experience of my life, or it was a horrible time, where he actually blended the very best of Walt Disney World with the practical realism of somebody who's a tourist. He was really the sort of the first balanced journalism on the web that I saw of Walt Disney World.
I think that lends to one of Scopa's great. Talking about the guy like he's dead or he's not here, but
I know, really. Let's face it, he's gonna outlive all of us, so whatever.
Yeah. No, one of his things is that he is a great storyteller, and I think that lends a lot to the stories, Mike. Because I think we all share common experiences. We all go on Spaceship Earth and have an opinion on it, or we all, for instance, we all really strongly dislike Stitch's Great Escape. And I think that there's more than just saying it stinks and I don't like it. There's more to it than just that. Saying that, anyone can say that, and I think that what you're saying, Len, is that it's that again, what I call the great storytelling ability.
So you mentioned Scopa's storytelling ability. The article I think that he did better than anyone. He did this thing of staying overnight in the Magic Kingdom.
Yes,
where
joke.
The classic story, but it was an actual article. I don't know if we should probably post a link to it, because it's one of the best pieces of writing on Disney World I've ever read, and it was an inspiration. So he writes this story about how he falls asleep on a park bench, and he wakes up at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and he's all alone in the Magic Kingdom, and he spends the night there, hiding out. And I thought to myself, I'm reading the story going, now that he's done it, I have to do it. I have to try the same thing. I mean, the whole point of me trying to figure out where I can jump in the lake off of Tom Sawyer Island to spend the night in the water so I can stay in the park is based on Scopa's story of staying in the park. And it turns out at the end it was all just a dream. But since then, Scopa, I don't know what year you wrote that, but the year ever since then, literally every single year, I've begged Disney, guys, I'm coming down to the park for our annual research trip. Let me stay in the park overnight. Every year they've said no, although I've gotten close a few times where they're like, we just can't do it this week or next week, but we like the idea. But one day it'll happen, and we'll stay in the park all night, and it's going to be fabulous.
What's funny about that article is that about 85% of the responses were, "Oh wow, you really had me going," blah blah blah. It was like Bobby Ewing in the shower, the dream. But there were another 15% that said, "I will never read you again. That was such a terrible trick to play on me." Blah blah blah.
I was brilliant.
Yeah, Newell.
Yeah, seriously, fabulous.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn the tables on you, Len, and I'm going to turn and I think I'm not sure about what Scopa or Newell have to think about it, but I think the one brilliant idea that I'll give you credit for, although you may have ripped it off from Bob, but I'll give you credit for it since you're here and Bob's not, is is the notion of trying everything regardless of your personal opinion on it, whether or not you think it's a good idea in the first place. The ethic that you use in the research is something that I've incorporated in when I go over to the studios. I try everything, not because let's face it, when I had to watch High School Musical 3, the pep rally,
you weren't learning anything, right?
No, I was sitting over there and I was thinking to myself, how much of this can I see before I can leave early? But I stayed through the whole thing and I did it. got the the information I needed. But that again goes back, I think, to the type of work ethic that you bring over there. Scopa, what do you think?
As far as Len, I think that his ability to take science and math and apply it to a simple task of which isn't really that simple, of theme park touring is just amazing. I don't think people really understand it. I know we're all friends, but trying to be objective here, I don't think everybody realizes the amount of data that goes into the touring plans aspect of what Len brings to the table. And I think that people need to realize that when he says, oh yeah, today is a level such and such, and it'll take you about such and such to wait in line for this attraction, they don't realize how much information goes into that. And that universe of data, that it's not a sampling, it's just constant data being fed into that formula. And I think that nobody else can do it. I think there are a lot of people who have tried to do it, and they just fall short. And it's just something that he has built, and it's going to be his legacy that he has come up with that plan, and it is so accurate. I don't think there's anybody in the world that's going to come close to it. And I'm just saying that because I know that once in a while I would say to him, yeah, I'm going, next week, blah, what should I expect? And it's either him or Fred that tells me, Fred Hazelton says, hey, it's going to be such and such on this day for this attraction in this park. And I think that there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes that I think a lot of people just don't appreciate when it comes to what Len puts into the touring plans.
Let me add on to that, Mike, what you were saying. It's like in if I can relate it to baseball for a second, when you're talking about like the MVP award, one of the things that people look at for an league MVP is the look at what if you took that player off the team? What's left? Does the team still do well without him? Then maybe he's not that valuable. But if you think about, I think we really do take something like touringplans.com for granted, the crowd calendar at the very least. I mean, think about it if there was no more crowd calendar tomorrow and you're trying to plan a trip. I mean, obviously we all know during holidays, it's going to be crowded, but generally speaking, we don't usually go on those holidays, and there's a varying degrees of crowdedness, and trying to think about how you could gauge whether or not it's going to be crowded or not, what park to go to, I think is a major it's a major tool to have. It's an asset for sure, and that speaks exactly what you were thinking about.
Yeah, the amount of money that goes into the crowd. So just to put this all in perspective, we spend more updating the crowd calendar every year than most guidebooks spend revising the entire guidebook.
Right.
just the crowd calendar, and we've got not only do we have Fred Hazelton, who's our professional statistician for it, we have an economist now that helps us with judging things like occupancy levels and whether the latest deals.
That's where it all starts, Len. I mean, that's exactly where it all starts.
It's just crazy.
All right, Len, why don't you finish it off here?
All right, so who's left? No, just kidding. What? Is that we're done?
Perfect.
So
that sums it up.
That's right there. No, so I think the thing that Matt has brought to not only to the show but to the web is the single-minded focus on a particular park that no one else has ever thought of doing or has done since. You've seen, I mean, individual people have websites devoted to a particular hotel or to all of Walt Disney World or some particular aspect of Walt Disney World, but Matt is the only person I know that has taken an entire theme park and essentially called it his own by saying, this is the studios and this is what's great about this park. And you could have done it the easy way. You could have taken the Magic Kingdom, right? Which is, the park that everyone knows. But the studios really, I think you've really highlighted a lot of the lesser known aspects of the studios to a bunch of people who wouldn't either find them themselves or even know to look. And I think that's really an accomplishment. You've got an entire community out there devoted to the studios, which again, for the life of me, I can't figure out the appeal, but whatever. I'm just, we're being magnanimous here, so that's cool. But I think that's really the brilliance of it all, that you've taken an entire theme park and really made it interesting to a whole class of people who wouldn't otherwise know that it's there.
Thank you.
I was going to say the thing that Matt brought to all of us is the vision of this show.
Exactly.
I know
Oh yeah, there's that too. Oh yeah,
that's what I was
going to say too. Yeah.
curse or whatever, but okay.
I know that Len and Mike were in the plans of discussing about doing a show when we first started. But it was Matt that emailed me, asking me if I would be interested, and he got together with Len, and Len
Didn't
brought in
Hotchberg
Mike.
want to make this? Wait, didn't he want to make this like a 2-hour extravaganza 4 times a week? Wait, that was Mangello. I'm sorry.
All about the studios, but especially about the studios.
So I mean, I'll give him all that credit. Not only is he the host of the show, but he's also the heart of the show. And almost
And
500
voice.
episodes later, he just needs to speak a little slower, and we'll be good.
Pico spills. I mean, where would we be without that?
Now let's pick out all his faults.
Exactly.
It's only a 20-minute show.
All right. Anyway, that's it for us today. If you want to find our older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, visit the WDW Today website at wdwtoday.com. For Lancaster, Mike Scopa, and Mike Newell, I'm Matt Hotchberg. We'll see you on the next show.
This has been a production of Mouse World Radio.